Hello. Today I'll be talking about Prince Maelgwn of Llandaff. On Britain's Hidden Histories Facebook group page the other day, someone asked if there was a definitive list of all the published books written by Alan Wilson and Baram Blackett. I didn't wait for an answer, but doubt there is such a list anywhere. The starting point for the list would be the books available for sale on Cymroglyphics. To the books that would be listed by compiling those published under their names directly or under known pseudonyms such as Grant Barclay, and the collaborations such as with Adrian Gilbert, should be added this one, Maelgwm of Llandaff and Joseph of Arimathea, stated to be by Michael A. Clarke as contributing editor based on the works of M.A. Kelly. Published in 2013 by the Covenant Publishing Company Limited, the booklet runs to 18 pages of large type text and 14 pages of notes, appendices, and bibliography, plus 4 of photographs and maps. I read the book a long time ago and was inspired to pick it up again recently, and this time around realized that it must be an Alan Wilson Baram Blackett book. Suitably hidden, of course. The type of book that Alan would call feeder book. Indeed, there are 3 books listed in the bibliography which were being offered for sale back in 2013 by M.A. Kelly from an address in Newcastle upon Tyne. The 3 books are Holy Kingdom, King Arthur Conspiracy, and Arthur and the Charters of the Kings. This booklet whets your appetite and feeds into all the other books. Who were Michael A. Clarke and M.A. Kelly? I checked with Covenant Publishing, and it turns out that Michael A. Clarke was a former president of the British Israel World Foundation, who run Covenant Publishing. He helped put the booklet together, but the manuscript was provided by M.A. Kelly. Covenant Publishing believed Kelly was a pseudonym for Alan Wilson, but they couldn't be 100% sure. So why do I think it's an Alan Wilson Baram Blackett book? The style is unmistakably theirs. The use of we at least once in the book, as in my colleague and I. The way the meaning of Welsh words are broken down. The line plans of genealogies are common throughout their books, and, of course, the research is typical of them. And the sources of reference are common to their other books. So why did Alan Wilson write this book? The purpose of this booklet is to bring to the notice of Christians and historians alike the fascinating history of South Wales that has been neglected and covered over by the passage of time. It will no doubt come as a considerable surprise to many to consider the evidence that the grave of Joseph of Arimathea, who arrived in South Wales in AD 35 to 37, still exists in Cardiff. Also, that the original island on which it was placed, now known as the Castle Grounds, is plain and obvious to see, and that any modern map of the city exhibits it. Until now, all the emphasis of early Christianity coming into the southwest of Britain has centred on Somerset, and in particular on Glastonbury, when in fact the centre of power at that time resided at Cardiff, South Wales. The evidence of the grave of Joseph of Arimathea being on an island surrounded by water on all sides, as described by the Prince Maelgwn of Llandaff, is very solid indeed. The old maps in this booklet show the changes in the course of the River Taff in Cardiff, and that the river split in 2 just south of Llandaff Cathedral, to be rejoined just south of the southwest corner of Cardiff Castle. There is no doubt that when the knowledge of the immense Christian heritage of South Wales, which has remained hidden for centuries, is fully appreciated, it will stir a very powerful interest in the heritage of the early British Church of South Wales and in the kings who ruled Britain in defiance of the Roman occupation. There we are. So that's why he wrote it. And the book is typical of Alan's style in that he sets the scene. He proves that the power base of early religion was in South Wales and not Glastonbury. So the book also points out the history of supporting evidence that Joseph of Arimathea came to South Wales. And that would be at Appendix 2 of the book. And in Appendix 2, Alan mentions Llanillid and the core, right underneath Mynydda, where Caradog had his fortress. So Alan's version of the history is that Joseph of Arimathea arrived in Wales, 7th year of Tiberius, I think he says, which is 37 AD, thereabouts. And he was drawn to where the power base was, which was Mynydda, and I was allowed to live possibly up on the fortress or maybe right by the core, because the church is at the core in nowadays, and I would have said that that made an ideal place to live for a religious person. So he would have preached then in the core, which is the donut-shaped earthen mound, hollow in the centre, 20 or so feet high, and the depression in the centre is only like 10 or so feet below the lip of the donut. And then in typical Alan Wilson style, after he's set the scene, he will describe Maelgwm of Llandaff in detail and the centre of power. And he states that Maelgwn here, the tall, is described in the life of Tylo as King of North Wales. And there's a list of his immediate relatives. So this is from the life of Tylo. By his contemporary kings, Tudrig, son of Taithfalt, Iddon, son of Unir Gwent, Gwgan Mawr, as Aurelian, Maelgwn, Con Lawhir, as Agricola Longhand, Cadogan, Tredesil, Rhyn, and many other kings and princes. I've got to apologise for my Welsh pronunciations, by the way. And they're not good, are they? All those kings were of circa 480 to 540 AD. So Maelgwn has to be the son of Tudrig, the brother of Maelgwn. And Maelgwn being the father of Arthur II, making Maelgwn Arthur's uncle. And at some point he became King of North Wales, but he's not to be confused with the later Maelgwn, who was circa 580 AD, because the Maelgwn of Llandaff, when King of Gwynedd, died in the Great Plague of AD 555, which is 25 years or more before Maelgwn ap Caswalan ruled North Wales. So there's always tremendous information in an Alan Wilson book, and this booklet is full of information. It gives the background of Maelgwn of Llandaff, and there's a record of Maelgwn set down by Llywelyn Sion and recorded by Edward Williams, better known as Iolo Morgannwg, around 1800. Maelgwn Hur, the Tall, of Llandaff, the bard and maternal uncle of St. Elio, bestowed land there on that saint, and there his sacred house was erected. This means that Maelgwn of Llandaff was a brother of King Maelgwn and a son of King Tudrig, and resident in the Cardiff area, and throughout the book is pointing out the obvious. Llandaff is only 1 mile upstream of Blackfriars Abbey, Friary, Monastery. 1 mile, well, less than a mile, upstream of Ynys Affallach. And I'm sure it's pointed out in the book that Ynys Affallach is the island of the apples, an orchard on an island. So the book makes a great deal about the course of the River Taff in olden days compared with modern. So if we take a look at the map of Cardiff in the present day, we see that the cathedral is over here, right by the Llandaff Rowing Club's stretch of water. It seems to me that the River Taff by Llandaff Cathedral has moved somewhat on a left angle turn. That bend there doesn't look real, does it? It looks manufactured. So it's right by Llandaff Cathedral. And then the river flows towards the sea. And Cardiff is actually famous for having 3 river estuaries in its city border and 1 mountain. So following the flow of the river down, we get to Blackweir. Further down, we head into Bute Park and then Blackweir Fields. All of that would have been Ynys Affallach, with the river following roughly the pathway of North Road and further over into the centre of Cardiff. And we've got Bute Park and Cardiff Castle there, and Blackweir just past the Millennium Principality Stadium, and the river estuary now fills into Cardiff Bay Barrage. So heading back upwards, the river that's split is now a canal, but the canal goes and so the canal goes underground in Cardiff city centre, and Cardiff City Council have decided to open it up, and it's nearly open now. In fact, it may well be fully open in a short stretch along one of the streets. I think it's Churchill Way, and I'll put some. The book Maelgwm of Llandaff and Joseph of Arimathea, whilst published by Covenant Publishing Company, who hold the copyright, is not available on their website. I asked them if they would republish, and they say they have no plans to at this point in time. I said to them, well, if it is an Alan Wilson book, I'm pretty sure there'd be a demand if it was republished. So there we have it. It's not available. There's no plans to be republished. But if you can get hold of a copy of it and read it, I think you'll find it's definitely an Alan Wilson Baram Blackett manuscript. Thank you very much.